Alright, so recently Leon Edwards got submitted by Sean Brady at UFC London, and although it might sound a bit harsh and early, I really do think that Leon Edwards should consider retirement. But before I explain why, I'd really appreciate if you guys could like, subscribe, we're really close to 600 subs, and it would really help me out. Now, Leon Edwards is coming off one of the most devastating losses in his career, in which he got absolutely dominated by Sean Brady, and ended up getting submitted in the 4th round. Now, losing to Sean Brady is not a bad thing at all, okay? Sean Brady is a very good name, he's clearly a very skilled fighter, and is probably one of the greatest grapplers in welterweight history. But the issue with this fight for Leon Edwards is that it clearly showcased the game plan on how to beat him. I mean, Sean Brady completely exposed Leon Edwards' flaws, and this fight just laid out a perfect and somewhat simple blueprint for Leon Edwards for every single welterweight to follow. And I think the worst part for Leon Edwards here is that this is a fairly simple skill set that a lot of welterweights do have, which is just being able to pressure with decent boxing and having good wrestling. Now, when a big star or a former champion goes on a bit of a losing streak, it usually is pretty ridiculous to say that these guys should just retire, because fans have done that. But in the case of Leon Edwards, I really do think that retirement is probably just the best option here, because if you compare him to a guy like Israel Adesanya, despite his losing streak, there's still quite high demand for Israel Adesanya to fight, okay? The guy's a huge star, and there's still a lot of fun fights left for him inside the promotion. And I really think that that's because the guy has a fairly fun fighting style when he's not defending a belt. He's fairly decent on the mic, and he's also still a very huge draw with a very big fan base. And another thing that I think is very important is that guy clearly loves to fight, okay? He fights fairly often, he was a very active champion, and he keeps coming back despite losing, and he just wants to fight for the fun of the game. And I really feel like Leon Edwards is a complete contrast to what I just described. Now, I'm actually a pretty big Leon fan, but when Leon is about to fight, I'm not expecting an absolute barn burner or anything, okay? That's not why I'm excited for a Leon Edwards fight. And he's not exactly like a charismatic genius on the mic either, okay? Most of his trash talk is just like, headshot dead, bruv, blah, bruv, I'm gonna come knock you out, bruv, you know, the belt don't look good on you, bruv. You know, that one built-in piece of dialogue that he has isn't exactly moving masses, so he's not exactly great on the mic either. He's not really selling pay-per-views, he's not a huge draw either. He's a fairly big draw in the UK, but outside of that, he's really just not a huge star. And even in the UK, I wouldn't say he's a crazy big star just because his performances are kind of boring. It's not like he's getting these highlight knockouts all the time. So as opposed to Israel Adesanya, who has so many like fun fights left ahead of him, despite him having a very long and successful career, Leon is probably going to be fed to the wolves by Dana and the UFC in hopes that they can get a prospect to build his name off of Leon's career. Now, this brings me to my real point on why I think Leon Edwards really should retire, because I don't understand why Leon Edwards would sacrifice his legacy just losing to prospects. Because the game plan is out there now, okay? Beating Leon Edwards is fairly simple and straightforward, okay? It's not easy, but it is fairly simple and straightforward, okay? I think a majority of guys in the welterweight division could do it, especially now when the welterweight division is just absolutely full of killers. I mean, just look at the rankings. I feel like a majority of these guys should be able to beat Leon Edwards, okay? And Carlos Prates is kind of an exception because he's not really a grappler, but at the same time, I really do think that Carlos Prates would probably knock out Leon Edwards. And if all you care about is legacy like Leon Edwards, I really don't see a point in you fighting these prospects because it really doesn't prove anything, okay? If he does go out there and he beats like a Joaquin Buckley or Carlos Prates, it really doesn't do anything for your legacy, okay? You've already beat the second greatest welterweight of all time. I don't see a point in you defending your spot against these guys, and especially the fact that he would probably most likely lose to these guys too. It really would be bad for his legacy, and obviously all Leon cares about is his legacy. Otherwise, he wouldn't really fight the way he does, because that's not exactly like the way you fight if you really just love MMA. And you know, I can't exactly imagine this guy loves fighting considering the fact this guy just never does it. So if you're in Leon Edwards' shoes and all you care about is your legacy, I really think that the best option here would probably just to be retire and preserve your legacy that's already starting to show some holes in it with the losses to Sean Brady and Bilal Muhammad. Now, people are really starting to notice how fragile Leon Edwards' legacy actually is, because a lot of people thought about Leon Edwards as this very skilled fighter, okay? Even though he was boring, he was a very skilled striker and he had very decent grappling. But people are starting to realize maybe Leon Edwards was never actually that high level that we really thought he was, okay? Because he gets a title shot of Nate Diaz, then he fights Kamaru Usman and he loses basically the entire fight and then gets a 1 in a million head kick KO at the very end of the fight. And then he beats Kamaru Usman in trilogy, and then his second title defense is Colby Covington, okay? Colby Covington is an absolutely terrible win, okay? That win has aged even worse now seeing Joaquin Buckley just absolutely destroy him, and Leon Edwards had a fairly close fight with him, okay? And then he fights a guy who's like fairly decent in Bilal Muhammad, gets absolutely dominated, completely ragdolled, and in then now he fights Sean Brady, and the same thing happens, okay? He gets completely dominated, and then he gets finished as well. Which is starting to make people think that Leon Edwards was maybe just never at the level that we actually thought he was. So I really do think that a couple more losses in Leon Edwards' career, it's really gonna look bad for his legacy. Now, the reason that this is so bad for Leon's legacy, as opposed to guys like Anderson Silva, who went on a huge losing streak, or even Tony Ferguson, is that those guys were old by the time that they were losing. Leon Edwards is still like 32, okay? He's not even washed. You can't say that he's washed, because this is basically the same Leon Edwards that we saw in the Kamaru Usman trilogy. So if he starts losing to these guys who really just aren't that good in the first place, it's really going to show that maybe Leon Edwards wasn't that good in the first place either, okay? So I think to prevent that from happening, I really think that Leon Edwards should just retire and protect his legacy, since it means so much to him. Now, do I think that Leon Edwards will actually retire? Absolutely not, okay? Not in a million years do I think that Leon Edwards is going to retire at like 32, okay? There's literally no way that this is going to happen. But I really do think that this is the best move for his career, since he really does care about legacy so much. And honestly, if he just takes a couple more losses, it would honestly just ruin all of that, okay? I really don't think people are going to respect Leon Edwards' legacy if he's losing to like random guys at like rank 13 or rank 10 at like 32 years old, okay? You can't really take that as seriously as like Anderson Silva, who was way past his prime when he was losing, or Tony Ferguson. You know, I don't really want to see Leon Edwards go, bruv, I'm on a 9-fight losing streak, bruv. I'm gonna come back, bruv. You know. So what should he do if he doesn't retire? A lot of people are saying he should fight Ian Gary. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I really do not want to see that Ian Gary fight, okay? I think that that's a very winnable fight for Leon Edwards, but at the same time, I really think that fight would be so unbelievably boring that I would actually just like gouge my eyes out if I actually had to watch it, okay? I really don't think people are thinking about this very hard. You have Ian Gary, who's not exactly like a very aggressive fighter, and then you have Leon Edwards, who's also not an aggressive fighter, okay? Both these guys are probably going to be like on opposite ends of the octagon, just circling each other for 25 minutes, okay? I really don't want to see that. And on top of that, Ian Gary is basically like a mirror matchup to Leon Edwards when you really think about it, okay? He's a guy who has like fairly decent boxing, but it's not actually that good. More of just a kicker, and he also has like fairly decent grappling. Like, I don't think that this fight would actually be good. Okay, maybe like in theory, it's gonna be a good fight. There's some like, you know, beef there, but I really don't think I'd ever want to see that, okay? I think for Leon Edwards, what he probably should do is just move up to middleweight, okay? Because the guys at middleweight are so terrible. I really think that he would absolutely dominate the guys like outside like the top 10, you know, the top 8, you know? He would probably beat those guys fairly easily. And on top of that, the guy is so fast that he probably could give the guys at the top a run for their money as well. You know, his grappling is also fairly decent, so I think he could survive there on the guys who are like bigger than him. But, you know, I really do think that he has way more of a future at middleweight than he does at welterweight right now, just because of how many killers there are coming up. But I really think the best option for Leon Edwards would probably be just to leave the UFC and like go to the PFL, okay? And I know that sounds crazy, and a lot of Leon fans might be kind of mad at first or kind of upset, but I really think once Leon Edwards is in the PFL and he's having like these decent performances against guys who really aren't that great, I really think that he would probably thrive in the PFL, okay? And I think he could be a champion for a very long time, just because those guys really aren't to the same level as UFC. So I do think that Leon Edwards should probably just go to the PFL, even though that's never going to happen in a million years. And, you know, I really doubt he would actually ever do that, but I do think that that would be a very good move for his career. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. All right.
Finna take that lounge truck to Japan. I'm like, little nigga, get your bands up. Yes, she can.